So until now you saw your first application, you saw how you could change a tiny bit of it. We went through the project structure and all of that, and that's nice, but what's actually happening in an Angular 2 application? What's Angular 2 doing, and how do we build an Angular application? Well, of course, with all these files, but what's inside those files? The core concepts of Angular 2 applications are components and directives, with components being directives. Now, what's that? Well, directives are instructions in the code, in the HTML code, telling Angular 2, which is the application running over your code, what to do. And components are such a very important instructions which tell Angular 2 how to render certain pieces of your application. So if we have a look at our browser window here and we're on example.com, well, we probably see a header with a products and about link, for example, and on the products page we might have multiple products, kind of a sidebar on the right, and all of these things here are components. Of course, they are living on a kind of a root component, a component holding everything together. That is the app component you saw in the first app lecture, where we had this app component being bootstrapped in the main.ts file, if you remember this, and that's the core, the root component holding your application. But then your application consists of multiple smaller components sitting on that root component. And that is the key concept of an Angular 2 application. When you're creating Angular 2 apps, you'll be building components. And component does not only mean HTML code, which is rendered in the browser, but also the logic behind that code. So handling user events, loading data, doing calculations, interacting with other components, because of course your components aren't standalone. They work together. So this is the key concept of Angular 2. And when you're creating an app, you'll be building components which, again, have a view, HTML code you see in the browser rendered as a web page, and the logic attached to that HTML code. And within each component, you may have references or selectors of other instructions, other directives or components, so that you build up your application of these building blocks, which then work together and make up your overall application. Because if we have a look at our web page here, we can basically identify a couple of components. We have our item components, we have the sidebar component, the header component, and of course the root component I was mentioning.